Hello! Welcome to Pint of a Story with me, Shobit. In this podcast, we bring you pint-sized stories from indie authors such as myself that you are likely not to have read before. Links to where the stories live on the internet will be in the show notes or description, and we do encourage you to click on them and read the stories for yourself. Hope you enjoyed today's story, and if you do, please share it around and subscribe if you like. Tales of grandeur, immoral and pure, greed and secrets, passion and glory. The pulse is rising, the plot's surprising. You captivated, that's the point of the story. Yes, that indeed is the pint of a story, and this week's story is called The Final Countdown, written by Lalita Ramachandran and first published in January 2021 on penmancy.com. Penmancy.com is a website we deeply care about, as they share the same passion as us, which is to provide indie stories a platform to reach as many people as possible. To read this story and many more, please visit penmancy.com. Your feedback and comments really matter, so please leave some. And hope you like this one. Here goes. Chicken Little was in the woods. An acorn fell on its tail. Chicken Little said, "The sky is falling. I will run." Rumi read out to her 4-year-old daughter, Neha. "Will the sky fall on my head?" the little one asked worriedly. "Of course not. This is just a silly nursery rhyme." The alarm on Rumi's phone went off. "Sorry, darling. Mommy has work. Close your eyes. Good night. Sleep tight." Rumi kissed her daughter and closed the door. She opened the fridge and grabbed a carton of milk. As she drank straight from it, she switched the television on to watch the 8 p.m. talk show that her husband Dave hosts. No matter how busy, she would always tune into her spouse's show. Rumi's phone beeped. She had a busy evening with a project deadline looming ahead. She wondered if it was her boss chasing her yet again. Rumi worked with software. While the money was good, the hours and deadlines were not. It wasn't her boss or a client. It was worse. The message was from her mother. The usual. "Rumi, can we please talk?" She ignored it, as always. Welcome to the 8 o'clock show. I'm your host, Dave Bhatia. Today, we will be discussing the surge in crime rates over the past year. Cases of domestic violence in all walks of life are increasing. Women are not even safe in their homes. Are the measures in place to prevent such crimes sufficient? I will now address this question to the esteemed panel. Whatever the esteemed panel had to say remained a mystery. Precisely at this moment, the screen flickered and went black. Rumi lunged for the remote and pressed buttons repeatedly, but to no avail. A deep baritone emanated from the TV set.
"This is not a technical glitch or a prank. This is God speaking. I have an important message for humankind. You have looted, plundered, and destroyed one another and your environment. On top of this, you complain to me all day long. I am fed up. I have decided to end all life on Earth. It will take a week to uninstall Creation version 1.0. I come to you without form or a name so that you do not find new reasons to fight. To reinforce my message, I will be sending signs. You will see shooting stars, sandstorms, earthquakes, and reddening skies. On the last day, there will be torrential rain. The floods will engulf the earth. marking the end of this era. You have 7 days. Spend them as you wish.
And with that, the TV screen came back to life. Rumi was shocked. What kind of prank was this? Dave's puzzled face came back on the screen. Apologies for this. Someone seems to have jammed our network. Excuse me. Rumi was flabbergasted. Dave, who was always in control, seemed to be lost. Astonishment was written all over his face. She quickly surfed other channels. To her bewilderment, every channel had apparently been hijacked and played the same transmission. Rumi texted Dave. I saw the telecast. How does one do a worldwide transmission? Tell me it's a hoax. She reluctantly logged on to her late-night project call, which ended up being the least productive call of the year. Everyone from Brazil to Bulgaria had heard the news, but no one could make head or tail of it. Rumi felt the onset of a headache. She headed off to the balcony. There, for a moment, she stood enjoying the cool breeze and the serene sky. Why didn't she do this more often? Without warning, the sky erupted. Fierce streaks of golden yellow cut across the velvety black. Shooting stars, she gasped. Just like the prediction. What infernal magic was this? Her phone went crazy. Groups were flooded with pictures, and then followed the onslaught of religious text. The University of WhatsApp reinforced God's word. This was Armageddon, Mahapralaya, the end of the world. Dave returned at 1 a.m., exhausted. The couple exchanged uneasy looks as they went to bed. Rumi hoped that this was a bad dream. The next day she woke up early and eagerly checked her phone. It had only gotten more bizarre. She skimmed through the headlines. Unknown global transmission baffles scientists, triggering mass hysteria. Is the end of the world imminent? Heads of state across the world urge everyone to stay calm. Former president claims rogue transmission is a sign from heaven that the election results were rigged. Tech entrepreneur Eli Musketeer claims his company can manufacture rockets to evacuate to Mars in a week. Rumi pondered. As crazy as this sounded, was everyone overreacting? Papa, Mummy, why do you look so glum? Asked Neha cheerfully, oblivious to the crisis her parents were going through. Nothing, darling. Let's get ready for school. After Neha boarded her school bus, Rumi made her way back to their apartment. She could see groups of people huddled and speculating. As to the topic of their discussion, there were no guesses needed. Rumi continued to work on her project. End of the world or not, the show had to go on. Social media went bonkers. Every Tom, Dick, and Zuckerberg had an opinion. Scientists claimed that the end of the world was unlikely, as no asteroid was headed towards the Earth, no unknown virus was discovered in the past few days, and the seismic plates were stable. They compared this to the misconstrued Mayan prophecy that had predicted cataclysmic events for 2012, but had ultimately not materialized. Spiritual leaders, however, sounded ominous warnings, cautioning the mass population not to dispute God's will. In the evening, she waited in front of a building for the school bus to arrive. Suddenly, her line of sight became blurry. A gust of warm wind blew in, bringing with it millions of grains of sand. A sandstorm in this part of the world? Unheard of. Her eyes filled with tears. The storm cleared, revealing the dust-covered silhouette of the bus. She saw Neha's little form emerge. The storm had frightened her. Rumi held her daughter close in a protective embrace. At home, she returned to her desk. Dave had nicknamed it her rumination corner. On an impulse, she drew up her bucket list. To be fair, there wasn't much one could do in a few days. She doubted if she could master the piano, or visit Paris, or go bungee jumping. Following the transmission, airlines were booked to 200%. A travel agency had advertised, "Little time left, make memories." The irony. At the mention of memories, Rumi recalled her turbulent childhood. She was all of 8 years old when her mother left. Her parents used to fight a lot. One day, her mother packed her bags. She just asked Rumi if she wanted to join her. She, being Daddy's daughter, had staunchly refused. Her parents separated. She chose to stay with Daddy and preferred to avoid her mother. Her mother had remarried and had another daughter, Esha. A daughter to replace me, thought Rumi bitterly. Daddy had died a few years ago, leaving a void in her life. Mother had tried to reach out to her on several occasions, including her wedding, but Rumi had made it amply clear that she was not welcome. She shut her laptop and switched on the television. The trending news of the hour? A religious leader had announced that God had appeared to him in a dream and appointed him as the chosen one. God said that my island retreat off the coast of Peru will be unharmed. Join me to seek salvation. Holy salvation tickets were sold at unholy prices. Only the rich could afford salvation, it seemed. The pathway to redemption seemed to be governed by the laws of economics. Every channel was flashing the question, is the end of the world here? Dave interviewed random people on his show. How do you feel about the world ending? Some said they were scared. Some believed it was a hoax. Others wished they had done things that they always wanted to do. No one said, I wish I had worked more hours, or I wish I had made more money. In the end, it seemed to boil down to people and their relationships. Rumi introspected. She needed closure on one relationship. On an impulse, she informed her boss that she was taking some time off. What startled her was that the boss didn't protest. Perhaps the melancholy had gotten to him. She set off in the car. The last time she had seen her mother was when Neha was born. She had come to see her grandchild. She recalled their last conversation. It was a thorn lodged in her finger that refused to budge. Why are you here? Rumi demanded. To see my grandchild. And since when have relationships mattered to you? You abandoned us and scripted your happy story. You already have a family, and it's not us. Rumi reached her mother's house. She rang the doorbell. She felt a sudden rush of anxiety and turned to leave when the door opened. Rumi, you're here. She followed her mother in. The house was decorated with bright wallpaper and curtains with sunflowers. Rumi felt pangs of pain. It was as if she was walking right back into her childhood. Tea? Rumi nodded. Both mother and daughter sat at two ends of a giant marble table, avoiding each other's gaze. Theirs was an uneasy silence. Too much time had gone by, with too little said. Neither knew where to start. I'm sorry, Rumi. Too late, too little, screamed Rumi. Her mother tried again. Do you still write? I have your stories with me. I always thought you'd be a writer. We even named you Rumi because your father loved poetry. You don't get to talk about Daddy. You destroyed him. Rumi, Daddy was an amazing father to you, but he wasn't a good husband. Don't you dare talk ill of the dead, yelled Rumi. He had an affair. I left him because of that. He let me go but wouldn't let me take you away from him. Her mother continued softly. How dare you malign him? Have you no shame? Rumi, I had to leave to salvage my self-respect. I'm not defending my actions, but I had to do what I had to do. I couldn't tell you then. You were too young to understand. I shouldn't have come here. Rumi stormed out, her eyes filled with tears. She returned home. Neha had just come back from school. She took her out for a stroll outside their building. It was dusk, and the sky was a myriad palette of orange and pink hues. Rumi couldn't remember the last time she had seen a sunset. She had been so busy with her work, she had missed out on the little joys of life. They visited the neighborhood bakery to buy Neha's sweet treat, "Mummy, there is a man who always sits there at that corner. Can we buy him something?" Neha pointed out to a disheveled, morose beggar. Rumi bought a hot tea and snacks from the bakery and handed it over to him. His face broke into a wide smile. Rumi suddenly blurted out, "Are you worried about the world ending?" "How does it make a difference to me? When I am gone, who's going to cry over my unmarked grave? Perhaps in the next life, if there is one, there will be better things for me." Tears pricked Rumi's eyes. She emptied her purse and gave away the remaining money to the beggar. In the end, money was only paper. Paper that served no purpose when everything turned into dust. That night, Rumi tossed and turned. Dave was concerned. "Are you okay?" "Yes," she lied. It was coming back to her in bits and pieces. Daddy's remorse. "I'm sorry, Rumi. This is all my fault. I messed up." She had refused to acknowledge this. She didn't want to be disloyal even to his memory. She had seated him on a pedestal. Her father could do no wrong. Her mother was the villain of the story. Daddy had urged her to reconcile with her mother. It made sense now. They were awakened at 2 a.m. Earthquake? Rumi bundled the sleeping Neha up in a blanket and headed out of their building with Dave. The building stopped vibrating in a few minutes. Some random person screamed at the sky, "Lord, stop this! We're scared!" Another memory. "Mother, I'm scared of the dark." "Why do you worry? I'm here. Here, hold my hand." Where did this come from? The world was approaching the end of the week. 2 days to go. It was time for the final countdown. The nervousness and levels of anticipation peaked. On one hand, the daily doomsday omens occurred with startling regularity. On the other hand, miracles were occurring. The warring neighboring countries of North Zumbria and South Zumbria demolished the walls separating them. People rushed to the opposite borders to reunite with their estranged families. An old grandfather, tears streaming down his cheeks, declared, "I left when I was a little boy. I came back to see my village before I die." Many a rich person distributed their wealth to the poor. When you have only days left to count, what is the point of locking wealth away? The fear of the end seemed to have made them better human beings. There were confessions and reconciliations all over the world. Temples, churches, mosques, and other houses of God witnessed record queues. Rumi noticed a cobweb at her home. In it was caught a dead dragonfly. "Rumi, dragonflies are special. When you see one, you can make a wish." Mother used to say that. She glanced at the lifeless insect. It had started to decay. This was death, a moment of non-existence, when one simply ceased to be. We come from nothingness, and to nothingness we go. Our sojourn is short, so why nurse grudges along the way? There are parts of our life we refuse to acknowledge. We lock these unwanted parts away into a box, into the deepest corners of our minds. One day, the locks get broken, leaving the box wide open. From then on, we can never go back to who we were before this. Rumi made her wish. This time, she would act upon it. She was back again at her mother's doorstep. Her mother opened the door. She was stunned to see Rumi and her family. "This is your grandmother. This is your Aunt Isha." Rumi introduced everyone to Neha. The little girl squealed as Aunt Isha lifted her up. Rumi's mother looked quizzically at her. "Daddy was flawed, but he loved me a lot. He made a mistake. I only wish you had fought for me, for us." "I wish too. I regret walking out every single day," sobbed her mother. "I forgive you. I love you, Rumi." They embraced. They spent the whole day together. There was still a long way to go, but they were taking it one step at a time. The final day, Rumi woke up with a start. Was today really the end of everything? But why did it feel like a beginning? She was determined to make every moment count. She spent the whole day with Neha and Dave and told them how much she loved them. She called up all the people she cared for. She laughed, she lived, and she realized she had never felt happier in her whole life. The rain started in the evening. If the prophecy was anything to go by, there would be torrential floods. After an hour, something strange happened. The rain stopped. The sun came out. There was a huge rainbow in the sky. Everyone came out of their houses to admire its divine omen, a benediction, a blessing from the heavens above. "Rumi, can you hear me?" Rumi opened her eyes. She was in a hospital bed. Dave spoke. "You had an accident," he explained. "You were in a coma." "Let me guess. For 7 days?" Rumi interrupted him. "Yes. Do you remember anything?" he asked. Rumi strained her head. That night, after she had read out Chicken Little, she had opened the fridge and discovered they were running short on milk. She had ventured out of the house to shop. In her hurry to get back, she was hit by a car while crossing the road. The last thought she remembered had been, "The sky really did fall on my head." Neha rushed in. "Mommy, you're awake!" She wrapped her mother in a warm hug. "Rumi, your mother's outside. She doesn't want to upset you. Do you want to meet her?" asked Dave hesitantly. "Let her in." "Are you sure?" "Yes, I am," Rumi nodded assertively. A week later. "Humans are flawed," she wrote. "We search for happiness everywhere except the one place that we can find it: within. What happens when you know your days are numbered? Do you keep a scorecard of the grudges and regrets you nurse? But that is such a petty way to live. Live every day like the end is near, doing things you always wanted, with the people you love the most. You will ultimately find that the end is no longer the end, but a beautiful beginning." Rumi smiled. Her essay was done. Writing had always been her first love, but had taken a back seat when other priorities came along. Not anymore. She was taking a break to focus on the things that mattered the most to her. Her near-death experience had taught her that much, and she was grateful for it. She composed her email to Penmancy, the platform she had newly discovered, on her endeavor to become a published author. "Here is my entry for the prompt," she typed. "The end." She smiled again. This wasn't the end. This was a beginning. So, we hope you liked that story enough to tempt you to subscribe. We encourage you to share it with anyone else you can think of that would like to hear our stories as well. But do not forget, it is the writers that make the stories, so please read them for yourself by clicking the link in the description. That'll mean the world to us. Thank you for your time, and we hope to see you with our next. In the meantime, remember, if you can't find what you're looking for, create it. Take care.